What is the most out-of-touch thing you've heard a person say? So, he told me, as long as you're dating someone better looking than you're gonna have to get used to me being hit on or having something on the side. You're gonna have to date an ugly guy for that loyalty crap. Yeah, no thanks. Next story. I don't know why you would go to a community college when you can go to a university, said by a high school guidance counselor giving a lecture on college admissions essays and applications in my senior AP English class, after I asked naively if there's anything I had to do for community college. And turns out I had other classmates in the same boat too who wanted to know but felt too embarrassed to ask. Anyways, I went to community college to get my prerequisites out of the way and got my associate's degree. They transferred into university for a competitive nursing program. I saved money from the first 2 years in community college, didn't get a loan until I got into university. F that guidance counselor. Next story. Had a friend in dental school who grew up in the rich suburbs of North Detroit. We were talking about traveling. She was going to Thailand for spring break, and she said, "I'd be surprised if most people hadn't traveled to at least 20 countries." I told her I'd be surprised if most people had ever left the US at all. Alright, I just want to get something off my chest. I don't know what it is with dating apps and people, but where do all these women find time to just travel and hike and travel and hike? There's nothing else. I don't want to travel to Persia. Is it even a country anymore? I don't know, but it's just all they say on their profiles. I should delete those apps. Anyway, next story. So, my dad just died about a month ago. My company gave me 4 days unpaid off. I was really close to my father, so this was a hard time for me to deal with. My paycheck was enough to pay bills, but I had to buy my groceries on credit cards to get by. My boss's brother-in-law died the following week, and all he talks about is how hard this is on his wife. Between the stress of her brother dying and the Reno and their $1 million cabin, he's taking his whole family to Hawaii for 10 days this month to try and deal with their grief. Meanwhile, I'm pricing urns out on Amazon to try to save money, trying to sell my dad's tools to help my mom, working full-time, and taking care of a toddler. Next story. Sort of tangential. Back in college, the entire class had a 10-minute argument with one student who didn't understand that not every country has citizenship by birth laws like the US does. The professor held off jumping in for about 5 minutes to watch us explain it to her, but couldn't take it anymore and figured the student would finally believe it when she said it. Nope. She started arguing with the professor too. The total out-of-touch part came when she finally conceded with, "Well, that's stupid. They should just do things the way we do them here." Next story. A year ago, we were putting offers on houses, and our budget was low compared to what was available, and the realtor would ask, "Well, can't your parents help pitch in?" No, which makes me think a lot of people are lucky enough for their parents to help with the home buying process, but yeah, not us. Next story. I grew up super poor, like going days without eating kind of poor, all because my mom legit thought welfare was only for unwed black mothers. She never called anybody to confirm that, never asked around. She wouldn't apply for reduced school lunches either because that was ghetto. Imagine being so racist and buying into the welfare queen lie so hard that you would let your own children starve. Next story. I was told, if you're depressed, just go to Tulum and take a break, vibe high. Like, girl, that is not how depression works. And yeah, I will just leave all of my responsibilities just for randomly deciding to go on vacations. And when I told her that's not the way how depression works, she said to me, "You're just too pessimistic. Every time I feel depressed, I do that." And I asked how she knew she was depressed. And she answered, "Well, the last time I had depression was because I cried because my dad didn't want to take me to Paris for a year." I wanted to die in that moment. Okay, guys, I think I solved it, and in record time. I was just seeing rich girls everywhere. Maybe this woman here who believes Paris is the cure to depression is just all I'm seeing. Maybe comparatively speaking, I'm just a broke toe. I think I solved it. Anyway, next story. So, I used to work for a minor aristocrat. Some advice he gave out in absolute sincerity over the years: don't take out a mortgage. Whatever you do, terrible things. You'll end up paying a lot more for your house, you know. Then another time, he told me, the thing about a Bentley is that you have to have a crap car too. I mean, there are times when a Bentley just isn't appropriate, and what you need is a crap car. Crap car later turned out to be an expensive Alfa Romeo and a Bentley to be several Bentleys. Then there was the time he recommended the Ritz in London as a place for regular after-work drinks. And finally, one time told me, I don't know how anyone survives on their company's salary alone. His salary was more than £300,000. That's USD $500K a year. Next story. when a guy on Am I the A-hole subreddit was upset his wife was making him babysit their infant too much. So he and his mom told her there'd be no more going out. He said him going out all the time was different than her going out, and when asked for clarification, he said because she's better at changing diapers and getting the baby to sleep. It truly blows my mind there are morons out there who think taking care of their own child is babysitting. Next story. Suggested someone take the bus to save on gas prices, and they responded, "Ew, do you know what kind of people take the bus? Yeah, working class people. And also me?" Next story. One time I was simply asked, "Why don't you just buy a house?" What an absolutely terrific idea. Can't believe I didn't think of that. Let's see. The cheapest house in my neighborhood is currently $335,000 and has plumbing and wiring left over from the 1970s, no central heating, mold, foundation problems, a roof that needs replacing, the oldest water heater I've ever seen in my life, a gopher issue, bad windows, a terrible location with a driveway that opens up right onto one of the busiest streets in town, and the smallest backyard ever. The bank won't approve us for a loan on the mortgage because they think we can't pay it, even though we pay $200 more than it a month in rent even after the fees. That's the idea in the garbage. What other brilliant fixes do you have for my life? Edit. To any dumb MFs who tell me to just move out of the country, shut up. The town we live in has a sub 20K population. This is just what it's like everywhere within 15 miles of the large metro area we live near. I'm not moving half an hour or more from all of our friends and family, and I shouldn't have to. Please keep your terrible takes out of my inbox. Next story. My boss told me that the leasing of our company car is ending and I could buy it for really cheap if I want it. Really cheap meant 20,000 euros for him. He pays me 750 euros a month. I'm still in training, that's why it's so little, and I live on my own and have a car. So basically, I'd have to work for about 2 years for this really cheap car without spending a cent on anything. Next story. A woman told me that having to show her Costco membership card upon entering the building was the worst thing that ever happened to me, and she was dead serious. I was on my 6th day of a migraine and would love to have that be the worst event of my life, to have been showing a membership card. Next story. We should never raise taxes on the rich. I'm not used to sacrificing things, so if you make me take only one vacation a year, it would be worse than if you made a poor person have less, because they are used to not having things already. Student in a college finance course. Next story. To preface for all of the people trying to give me mortgage advice from the US, I live in Canada and our mortgage rules are extremely different. Thank you for the suggestions, but you cannot expect your home buying methods to work in a different country. So, me conversing with a patient about the housing market when I was like 22. I say, houses are so expensive, it's going to be difficult to get into the market in a few years. This was some years ago. And then the patient, whose husband inherited a lot of money and a business, and now they're wealthy AF, tells me, "Rent is the same as a mortgage, though." And I say, "It's the down payment we need." "Well, why don't you just get your parents to give you the down payment? That's what ours did, and we paid them back." Okay, so my dad is dead, and my mom has a rare illness that placed her on long-term disability. "Oh, well, yeah, not everybody has the same opportunities in life." And the patient just stands there and says nothing. Edit. I'm 27 now, by the way, and have a down payment, but to no surprise, the houses within a 1 to 1.5 hour radius in all directions of me are selling for like 1 to 1.5 million. As a result, interviewing for jobs 2.5 hours away where the market is nice and affordable. Next story. Somebody was referring to insert generic top university here and told me, "I can't understand why they're dumb people that don't wish to become more wealthy and just enroll in the university," referring to people that are content with their jobs and do not wish to change their career path for the sole sake of money and status. Also assuming, of course, everybody has money and time for that. Next story. I attend a typical rich kid's high school as one of the non-rich kids, at least to the standards of the environment I was in. My family was solidly middle class, and the amount of asinine, delusional crap I heard on the daily made my skin crawl sometimes. When my ex-friend turned 16, her parents gave her one of their Beamers. The thing was maybe 5 years old, and she non-stop complained about the fact that her parents had the audacity to give her a used car instead of buying her the new Audi she wanted. One day, she was on another diatribe about how much her parents sucked for giving her a hand-me-down car, and I snapped and told her that she should be grateful her parents had the means to give her her own car in the first place, let alone a luxury vehicle. And her response? "Well, it isn't my problem your parents don't work hard enough." Eye roll. I was a peasant who shared one of my parents' cars or took the bus. That's sarcasm if you couldn't tell. Next story. In 2013, Gwyneth Paltrow said, "We're human beings and the sun is the sun. How can it be bad for you? I don't think anything that's natural can be bad for you." Okay, so let's say I get bitten by a rattlesnake. I shouldn't be worried. The venom's natural, isn't it? Just a note, she was saying this because she thought the sun couldn't possibly be bad for you. 15 minutes of sun a day should be healthy for anyone. Pure radioactive sunlight, no SPF. Next story. Wait, people still use libraries? Lady who said it never worked a day in her life. Has a master's in something and lives in a 5-bedroom house and used to have a working kiln in the basement. And a 3-car garage with gas-guzzling SUVs. And she owns like the most expensive kitchen appliances. I am sure that a catering team could work out of her kitchen. I was rendered speechless. Next story. A male friend and I were walking around his city when I noticed this guy watching me intensely and following us. We're about to get into this elevator and the guy quickly jumps in before us and makes prolonged eye contact with me. So I hold us back from getting into the elevator and the guy gets off and walks away. I tell my friend about it and he tells me how hurt he felt that I robbed him of his ability as a man to protect me. The fact that he thought I should ignore my own sense of self-preservation just to soothe his own ego was one of the most out-of-touch things I had heard in a while. Next story. During a break room discussion on how one of my coworkers was having to go on food stamps because the job didn't pay enough, the new CEO, who for the first and last time decided to have lunch in the break room, dropped this gem. "Yeah, I know what you mean. We had to let our second nanny go." Next story. Former employee, when I confronted him on how he has been treating coworkers, said, "I've worked with those type of people before." Okay, what types of people? You know, women. Next story. I was 16 when I lost my dad. Our family is very, very close and I wasn't expecting it, so I was hit pretty hard. A month after his death, I was picking up a book at a friend's house, but my friend wasn't home, so her mother was the one to give me the book. She asked me how my family was doing, and I said we're trying to get back on our feet, and her exact words were, "Oh, don't worry, honey. Give it a year or two, and you'll forget your father even existed." And I was so shocked. She continued saying that first we forget their voices, and then their faces, and I left her house feeling numb, sad, and scared that I would forget my father. Next story. When COVID first became a pandemic and grocery stores in the US were out of stock of everything because people were panic buying, I was telling a person I was living with that they should leave food so other families could eat, and they said, "I don't care about other families." For reference, they bought 4 gallons of milk in one shopping trip for a small family and other extreme quantities like that. This is the same person who, when my pop-pop died while they were on vacation, was also out of touch and said to me, "Well, I guess it's good you didn't go with us after all," was the first thing they said when they saw me. Next story. A few months ago, there was this thing on the news where they tried to break down the average American's spending with a pie chart. They had some of the most ridiculous things I have ever seen listed on that chart. For example, they seem to believe that the average lower middle-class American donates between $300 and $600 a month to charity. Yeah, okay. Tell that wasn't pieced together by a bunch of rich people who were completely out of touch with what it's like to be middle-class or lower middle-class. Next story. For context, I had a job that had me working 60-plus hours a week with only 2 days off every other week. Hour-long commute each way, low pay, the whole shebang. The job put a huge drain on my mental health. I was already depressed and started wanting to self-unalive thoughts, and I confessed this to my boyfriend one night because I was getting scared. I'd been having these thoughts and feelings for 2 months, and his input was, "Oh, everyone hates their job. That's normal." Me wanting to drive myself into a tree every day is normal? Okay, good to know. Next story. I still think of the "if you don't like where you live, just move" line. Sure, it's definitely going to be easy to pack all 3 of my kids' bedrooms, find and hire a moving company, find a job, sell my house, research the cost of living and state laws, buy another house, pay for another company to move my work vehicle across country, drive or buy airfare for 4 people, buy a new house and settle in. Yeah, super easy. Next story. My mom was widowed at the age of 27, with 3 kids under the age of 5 to care for. She would chat with other moms who happened to be divorced. This was back in the early 80s, so it was uncommon but was starting to happen. And people would tell her, "Oh, at least your husband is dead, so you still don't have to deal with an ex and kids going back and forth." Like, seriously? She still loved her husband when he died. Like, who says that? Next story. It was either, "Well, at least your husband is dead," or "You're so lucky your husband is dead, so you don't have to deal with this." I'm almost 40, and it will be nearly 39 years ago since my father passed. So my memory doesn't always remember things exactly, but you get the gist of it. Next story. I work for an HBCU and recently went through a rough patch at work that had nothing to do with me being Caucasian and working at a historically black college. And then my mom says to me, "You're just gonna have to accept that they hate us." Mom, please stop watching Fox News all day. Next story. I had an employer who was a treasure trove for these. His mom was bad too, but the one that sticks out the most was personal. For context, right before work, a person had told me that a friend of mine had died by taking their own life. I also had COVID for 2 weeks before this. Anyway, I was at work, told a friend what happened. Nosy boss and mom wanted to know because they were eavesdropping, and I told them. Later on, I was told to work on an order for a customer. I was okay and started working on it. These were chains for a funeral home for urn necklaces, and as I'm working on them, the boss came up to me and said, "The more people die, the more money they make, and the more they buy, so the more money we make. It's a good thing people die of COVID." I was so shocked I didn't even say anything. My coworker near me was also too shocked to say anything, but I still think about it to this day. Next story. I was told, a man can't be attracted to the same woman after they've had sex already. Men are biologically wired to want to have sex with as many different women as possible, which is why you look repulsive to me. We had been dating for 8 months. He then asked me to marry him so I could get a promotion at work. Next story. My grandfather died after some pretty egregious medical errors. My now ex-spouse said when I was crying, "Old people die, that's how it is, get over it." That was the moment I knew I was 100% going to divorce him. Took a few more months to be brave enough to leave, but I did. Next story. I'm biracial and a person of color. Well, I also have a very white-sounding name, but I don't know. I had some really pretty friends in high school. Blonde with light eyes, nice girls. One day, one literally looked at me and told me that I would be a lot prettier and fit in with them more if I had blonde hair and blue eyes and less tan skin. I genuinely didn't know how to respond to that. And if I'm being honest, I still wouldn't if it happened again today. You know how you respond to that, people? You tell them to go F themselves. If you're from a violent home, I don't encourage violence, but you pull them by the hair a little and say, "This blonde hair, this one right here." If it's over a video game, you team kill them and teabag them. If it's in real life, you slash their tires. That's just how life is, right? The gist of it is, tell them to go to hell. Who would say that? Anyway, next story. True comment from my boomer mother when we celebrated a family event at Olive Garden about 2 years ago. "These waitresses make good money. Being a server is a good job." Me, having worked in restaurants and bars for years, said, "What? There's no benefits, no insurance, and people can be horrible at tipping." Then my mom said, "Well, then they should go to college and get a real job." I was so angry I couldn't hardly see straight. Needless to say, I can't talk to her about anything these days. She is one of the most entitled boomer Karens you will ever meet. Next story. I was told one time, "You don't have dyslexia. Dyslexia has the root dys, which means not. You would not be able to read." The school staff member told me that, who was literally testing me on my abilities relating how to approach my IEP accommodations. Next story. Celebrities have the same 24 hours in a day. If they can be successful, so can you. No, they effing don't. When a single mom is working 2 minimum wage jobs just to put food on the table, that's not the same as a celebrity who can afford a nanny and a personal chef and an assistant, and they don't have to work a 9 to 5. Not the same effing thing at all. Next story. I was told, "I'm in more pain than you are because I was her husband. You have it so lucky." My stepdad said that. He had been dating my mom for a year and married her a month before she died. She married him for health insurance because she had lost hers, and this is what he said to me, her daughter of 22 years, just a few days after she died. Next story. During the war in Syria, a bunch of boomers asking why those people would destroy their country like that, and now the refugees coming to Canada are going to do the same to our country. This coming from people that have never actually experienced anything close to war or civil unrest. They have no clue how war works. Next story. My boyfriend's brother saying that my boyfriend raised me out of poverty like he was some sort of saint. My boyfriend didn't raise me out of poverty. He helped. He bought me groceries. He gave me motivation, but I'm the one who worked hard. I'm the one who updated my resumes, got a higher paying job, and saved up my money to get a better car and apartment. He didn't do that for me because we had only just started dating. Boyfriend's brother is now literally bringing up his girlfriend from poverty 3 years later. Next story. Was in a rehab facility. My Mormon mom came to visit and sat in on a group session with about 10 to 15 other patients detoxing from alcohol, painkillers, heroin, etc. One gentleman, who identified as homeless and a heroin addict, he asked, "What am I supposed to do when I have the urge to use?" And my mom raised her hand and said in full confidence, "Whenever I feel sad, I like to hop on the computer and do family history work. Family history work is my addiction. I think it'll work for you too." And my mom has said many out-of-touch things, but hearing her tell a room full of recovering addicts that the solution to addiction is family history work takes the cake. Next story. I was told, "You weren't bullied in elementary and middle school for being mixed. Maybe you were just an a-hole." Coming from my white mom who has no concept of racism, while I was one of the only mixed/POC people in my whole elementary school and received endless rude comments about my hair and my skin color. Next story. Not only out of touch, but horrendously racist. "I don't want black people moving in next to me." Everyone gives a horrified look. "Not because I'm racist. I don't mind him at all. I just don't want him bringing the house price down." I was utterly speechless. Next story. I overheard a woman one time telling her friends there is no reason for anyone to be in poverty. She proceeded to say there is always help to better oneself or get a loan for college. She herself has $125,000 in college debt and thinks that it is okay, and anyone can afford to do it. Talk about out of touch. Next story. So, I work in an art gallery. The director and I were discussing an artist who paints abstract portraits of women with sorrowful expression. The director doesn't like the paintings, though, and was confused by the subject. I tried to explain that the artist was representing the suffering of womankind in our society. The most out-of-touch thing I ever heard was the director saying, "What suffering? I'm a woman and I'm fine." I spent the next 20 minutes trying to explain discrimination, SA, and depression woman face to a woman. Next story. My brother died by taking his own life recently, and a couple of days later, my mom was at a doctor's appointment, and the doctor asked how she was doing. And she said not well. Son recently died, taking his own life, etc. And the doctor asked her if he was depressed. And my mom responded, "Do happy people take their own lives?" Next story. My grandfather told me to buy a house in the neighborhood adjacent to his because they're almost as nice as his neighborhood, but very affordable. The lowest priced house in that neighborhood currently sits at $695,000. I make about $70K a year. Next story. I live in a neighborhood with a bunch of apartments and it's lovely. There's loads of parks, trees, flowers, and bushes, etc., but most of the people that live here work lower income jobs. For context, across the road, there's like a huge neighborhood of big houses. And one time I was sitting on the bus while this teenage girl was giving her friend a tour of the area, and she deadass points to my neighborhood and goes, "That's where the poor people live," and then to the big houses and says, "And that's where I live." Like, what the hell? Next story. My cousin's boyfriend once said that a person's life is meaningless if they don't have fertility. He said to live is to have offspring, and that not reproducing is merely surviving, not living. Funnily enough, at the time that was said, I, 27M, recently got a vasectomy, but nobody in the family, aside from my mom and dad, knew that. Next story. I was told, "Wow, I wish I was as independent as you. You're really so lucky your parents don't coddle you," said to me in college by a 20-year-old from a very wealthy family when I explained I couldn't go to a party with her that weekend because I had to work. She asked why I couldn't just take a day off, and when I said it's because I'm paying for college myself, that was her response. Such an entitled brat. I think she ended up dropping out after getting kicked out of her majors program for skipping too many classes. Next story. Had an exuberantly wealthy girlfriend a while back. Family fortune was worth over $1 billion. She was under the impression this was normal, and that this qualified as her being upper middle class. And when I told her she was in fact upper class, she said, "I mean, what about trillionaires?" Sweet girl, just had no pictures of wealth. It was frustrating for me because I had recently learned I didn't have enough money to go away to college. Next story. My younger cousin was raised incredibly privileged. Her mom was a single mom and incredibly hardworking, though. One of those people who stayed at an entry-level job and worked her ass off to get where she is. They lived in a beautiful 5-bedroom home. So, I was babysitting for the weekend and was staying in their home. I was in my early 20s, in college, and absolutely did not have the means to buy a home. I could barely pay rent. My cousin, who was 11 at the time, very matter-of-factly said, "When I'm your age, I'll have my own house. You need to get your life in order." She's now 19 and living with her mom in San Francisco. How's owning that house going for you, Haley, huh? Next story. I once made a comment marveling at how some people with limited means still drive very expensive luxury cars like the Mercedes S-Class. Then, the guy I was talking to looked me straight in the eye and said that it was no big deal because you could lease one for $1,200 to $1,600 per month and hardly put any money down. Buddy, the difference between those two numbers is significantly larger than my monthly payments. Next story. Can you define the word woman for me? No, I am not a biologist. This was a Supreme Court nominee who apparently can't make a decision on anything having to do with women's rights because she is not a biologist and can't make the determination. Bit confusing since she is in fact a judge and a woman herself. Next story. We can't tie your tubes without permission from a man in your life. Really? A grown-ass woman in her late 20s who doesn't want kids? Ever? What if you change your mind though? Girl, adoption! Tie the woman's tubes, Jesus! I'm not a woman, but I was with my then girlfriend when this conversation happened. Absolutely vile. I had no idea that was even a thing. Still pisses me off to this day. Next story. I went to a church that encouraged tithing, or giving by telling us we could save money by just not going out for our coffee every morning. First off, I didn't realize how toxic it is for churches to do a freaking tithing messaging service. I now know. And second, you assume I have the money to run up to the Starbucks every morning for a coffee. Next story. I was told, why are you home all day when you need a job? Go out and meet with store managers in person and make a good impression. My father, who hasn't worked retail since the 80s. Almost all businesses want online applications now. Staying home is how I search for a job. When I was looking for temporary work one summer, he also recommended taking my previous manager out to lunch when asking about employment. No. Next story. I go for my Master Angler Award every year in Colorado. I usually go for carp because it's the easiest badge. In 2020, I was battling the fish that got me my patch on 6 pounds test, and some guy walks over to see what's going on. It's a 20-pound fish, and this MF watching me have the time of my life gets to me and says, "Nice, man. Hey, you ever heard of the flat earth theory?" And proceeds to solicit his bullcrap for like 10 minutes. He went on about it the entire fish battle before I told him he was weird and to F off. He told me I was a sheep. Fish was landed, but my whole vibe was killed. Like, really killed. Next story. From a well-off friend of mine, I was told, I don't know why more people don't have a Tesla. It's such a great investment. Even after discussing with them the price tag, they still just can't believe everyone doesn't have 50+ K for a vehicle. Then from another well-off friend, when we told him we couldn't go on a cross-country trip to see him, he said, it's only spring, have you used your travel budget already? It turns out they've been given several grand a year from parents exclusively earmarked for travel, and they assumed literally everyone else had the same thing. He had absolutely no clue, and honestly, I'm still not sure he gets it. Then, from a very well-off relative, I was told, at some point, you just have to start ordering bottle service when at a bar. It makes more sense, followed by a complaint about how hard it is dealing with capital gains tax. No, bro, makes more sense for me to order tall boy PBRs. And then, from a dumb relative after her daughter-in-law was put on a ventilator from COVID said, I had no idea people could actually get sick from this. Next story. I used to work with this guy whose family wasn't just rich, but like internationally known to be wealthy. He was stressed one day at the office, and over lunch I asked him what was the issue. Turns out finding a chef to cater for your family on an island off of the coast of Australia wasn't an easy task, even if you were able to fly them out on the family Lear. No, I didn't really have much to add to that one. Sitting there with my own brown bagged sandwich. Next story. This dude in my class from a few years ago was reading about this horrible incident where this 80-plus-year-old lady was SA'd and brutally beaten. His response to the SA part was, why would you SA an old B word? At least go for a hot woman or a MILF. 3 red flags for that. He always had this edgy, or more like disturbing form of humor. But I swear to God I could not comprehend what this man just said. Effing creep. What's even more disturbing is this girl was sitting next to him and she started giggling and actually dated him for a while, only to eventually press some kind of unknown charges after their breakup. Next story. Was visiting some of my partner's family in Seattle a few years ago. I came from a relatively poor family and my partner comes from a relatively not poor family. We meet up with my partner's dad and then girlfriend, and we grabbed breakfast at the restaurant by a marina. As we were walking along the marina back to the car, there are a bunch of large boats docked, and then towards the end of the line of boats are a handful of smaller boats that are docked. Then, my partner's dad's girlfriend says, "Oh, those boats, the small ones? Those must be the poor people boats." And I almost went insane with rage. As a poor Midwestern person, my mindset is just that nobody that can afford to live in Seattle and also own any sized boat is poor. It was just so effing random and unnecessary. Alright everybody, so after the first story with the guy talking to his girlfriend, this video pretty much devolved or evolved or transformed into rich people being clueless about how everything works. Not really surprised, to be honest. I was hoping for a little bit more out of touch from other people, but I'm not complaining. We got a couple of other things, though, like the women who don't understand women, which is insane to me. And rich people, they just live in different realities. That's just how it is. I'm not bagging on them, but they got different problems, and sometimes it gets to their head. But anyway, guys, we're at the end of the video. Comment your stories if you got anything relevant, but thank you all so much for watching, commenting, have a really good day, and bye-bye!